Life After the Fight is a show that speaks to everyday issues pertaining to our mind, body, and soul. We will address topics ranging from mental health, self care, fatherhood, family, relationships, and more. Our goal is to encourage listeners to keep fighting through the obstacles, challenges, and struggles. The focal point is simple: seek a fresh perspective, become teachable, and improve your overall health and wellness. If you're craving more growth and development, this podcast is for you.
So Ricky, we're back.
Yes, we
for
are.
another session, man. How was your week?
It was pretty cool, man. Pretty busy, getting my youngest son, ready for another sports season. He just came out of wrestling. Now he's in
Okay.
track.
Okay.
So just running around trying to get the right, spikes and the right, compression shorts and just the whole nine, man.
Nice.
It's a fun experience. I think it's even more pleasurable to see him go from one sport to another and just getting excited and getting acclimated. So
Well, it's good that he has the flexibility and the interest to do something like that.
yes, and that's something that he was kind of fighting me on. Just he really wasn't trying to do track, but I was kind of letting him. I said, just try it, and if you like it, cool. If not, then you can just stay with wrestling. But he ended up opening up my eyes and saying he wanted to do wrestling, track, and football. So I was like, okay,
Wow.
well, I said it's good that you're going to try these sports, and whichever one that you like. If you like all three, do all three. If you like 2 out of 3, do. If you just, I'm leaving it up to him to decide. But the supporting part of it is the most enjoyable because he understands that he has to be a student athlete. He can't just be an athlete. So
Gotcha.
he's a little bit more focused on his curriculum because he got to maintain a certain GPA in order to stay on the team. So.
Well, I hope you as daddy got stamina because it's gonna keep you on the road a lot.
Yeah. I'm in shape. I'm in shape.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. I got nothing really to add or share or anything. My week's been good. I'm good. Let's just get into it. So, Ricky, what's the topic we're going to talk about?
What does love have to do with it?
Wow, what does love have to do with it?
Yes.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
What made you choose that topic?
Man, I think really love has been in the air as it relates to the lessons and the sermons that I've been listening to, particularly, my church and then other churches. For whatever reason, this is the season where a lot of pastors are talking about love, how to love people,
Okay.
but also too not just loving people, but how to keep loving marriages and how and what that looks like. And I just believe that the reason being is because so many people are broken in relationships, and the divorce rate continues to climb, not just in the church, also but also outside the church. So it's
Okay.
both ways. And finally, people have lost generally the concept of what true love really entails and what it really means. And I think that people kind of throw that word around because it sounds good, it looks good, but they don't really understand that there's a responsibility behind that word.
Okay. And I guess the next question I have, how do you think or how would you like to convey this to our audience so it's going to be a benefit to them?
Enlightening and encouraging the audience to really take a look at themselves
Okay.
and to be able to see, is there anything within oneself that can be improved, changed, and how they can focus more on outer love more so than inner love. Because a lot of times we tend to want something from somebody that we can't provide for ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up because you bring about another question for me. How are you defining love?
Well, there's so many definitions. I won't, for this particular show, I won't go into the definition that my pastor created for the lesson. That'll be for another show. But
Okay.
for this particular setting, I just believe that the love piece definition can only be described in my eyes as something that is given, that's beyond oneself. And what I mean by that is when you look at the author of love, the one that created love, the one who demonstrates it 24/7, that's God.
Okay.
A lot of people don't really understand what's really truly behind love, but God, of course, and I tell people this all the time, whether you're a believer or not, love is something that you can't fake or put on.
Okay.
Love is something that's in you. It's in everybody. It's in all of us because we were all created in love. But the question becomes, do you know how to demonstrate it? And do you focus or rely on the person who actually created it? And so love really is just a demonstration of something higher and greater than you.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you think that there is ever any situation where love hurts or is painful?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
I
Can you
believe,
elaborate on that for our audience?
yes. I believe that a lot of times our pain and our hurt comes from something that we experienced that was traumatic.
Oh, okay.
Trauma is something that we've all endured, we've all encountered, we've all experienced. And I think that the recovery process of trauma is what keeps people from healing,
Okay.
And so when you look at love, love is supposed to be unconditional no matter good, bad, or indifferent.
Gotcha.
You know,
Gotcha.
the Bible, which I read regularly and you read regularly, it teaches us to love our neighbors, but also our enemies, which means that in order for me to be able to demonstrate the kind of love that God created me to demonstrate, I have to be able to focus on what is going to draw someone versus keep someone away. You and I both know, when someone comes at you wrong, the best way to counter it is to come at them good. Two wrongs don't make a right.
No.
And so a lot
Oh,
of
and,
times,
and as you said earlier, I think you're more of a scholarly student of the Bible than I am. I've been remiss in my readings, but so I want to clear that up for our audience.
yeah.
In case any of y'all are sending me some texts or emails about this, Ricky's probably your more go-to because I've been a little, let's say, absentee when it comes to regular readings. But anyway, I digress. Go on, Ricky.
Well, I mean, it's just and I don't want to turn this into a Bible study for the audience, but what I pull from the Bible are things that I've applied, and it actually works because I'm learning every day, and it's a process. I'm learning every day to be selfless
Okay.
in how I deal with people and how I handle people. Humility is one of the biggest things I have to learn in addition to love, because loving someone is being able to understand what the responsibility is in order to demonstrate something without getting it back. Which means I'm gonna give you an example.
Please, that was gonna be my next
Yeah,
question is, can you give me a personal
yeah. I'm gonna
example
give you an
of
example.
great?
You and I have been friends for over 30 years. For the audience who don't know that, now I don't remember ever a time that we had a fight or a disagreement, even though we've had different opinions.
Of course.
But for the sake of this conversation, regardless of what you and I don't agree upon, regardless if we ever get into a fight, because of the relationship that we have, I love you enough to not let a situation or a circumstance deter us from our relation, which means what? If I'm really your friend and I really care about you, I'm gonna love you through the situation and vice versa. Why? Because that's most important because that outward expression is what's going to be long lasting. That's what counts. Anything outward is an investment.
So you're saying the relationship is way more important than the situation or circumstance.
Yes,
Got it.
yes.
Okay.
Because the outward expression is me really investing in you or the situation. So when you look at an investment, that's something that you're putting in hopes that you're going to get a return. But with love, you're not doing it to get a return. You're doing it because the investment is worth more than the return.
What would you say to our audience about the people who are and I'm not going to say faking it, but and in many cases it could be real that they're putting an investment in love in someone because they expect the return.
Well, I understand that part because reciprocity is very necessary in a relationship.
Okay.
And so I don't believe anyone deserves to put into someone and then not expect anything back. However, in order to be able to demonstrate what you want from someone, you first have to show it yourself. And I
Okay.
just believe that when you focus on what you're trying to show a person, truly how you feel, you should be able to do it without expecting nothing in return. Now, if that person decides to capitalize, take, take, and take, and not give nothing back, then that's another situation where you have to now start setting boundaries and you start questioning why this person is not, you know, at least reciprocating and showing how they feel. And that's how you really get to the bottom of why people do what they do. So for love, understanding this, man, and the title, the subject matter here, what does love have to do with it? Well, has a lot to do with it because it starts from within. How much do you love yourself to be able to demonstrate love to somebody else? I don't think you can possibly love somebody without loving yourself first. Only because what are you deriving from? Where are you pulling from? And what are you actually demonstrating?
Let me ask you a question. So this comes to my mind, and I'm sure the audience would like to know the answer. What your thoughts are on it. I have seen a lot of people express love for one another.
Yes.
However, there is a factor that's often overlooked. And I ask these people, do they like the people they say they love? And let me substantiate that by saying, when I was a much younger man, I would go to work. I work with older gentlemen. And at the end of the day, they would say, hey, I'm gonna go to happy hour here and there and everywhere, wherever they were gonna go. And they would all agree to meet at a place. And they would go, hey, George, you wanna come with us? And usually I had something else to do. So I would say, no, I don't wanna go. And so along about the fourth time of them doing this over a period of time, I started having ideas
Mhm.
because they all three or four of them were married, and I at the time, young single man trying to navigate my way through life, and I just casually made a joke, and they all looked at each other strangely when I said this. I said, I don't doubt that you guys love your wives. I said, but you say you got to go to the happy hour, you got to do this, you got to do that, because you got to prepare yourself for all the nagging or whatever you're going to get when you get home. And I said, now, from a single man outside looking in, what I gather is you guys all love your wives, but do you like them?
Mm.
And so that's the question I want to have for you to explain to our audience.
Whew.
What is your thoughts on that?
George, that's a good question, man. And I'm just going to really be fair in my delivery, and I'm just going to give my opinion
Okay.
based on what I've experienced. It's really, really, really hard and difficult, to say the least, to say that you love someone but you don't like them. And the reason why I say that is because when you don't like someone, you want to spend as less time with them. When you don't like
That's my
I mean,
thoughts.
that's just that's just from my experience. And then if I don't like someone, I don't really want to be around them much. So that's a contradiction to say I love you, but I don't like you, because how can I love you when I don't even really want to be around you, or I can't stand you, or we just don't get along? Now, if you're talking about just agape love, where it's just I, or
I'm
should I
glad
say,
I'm glad you went there because
yeah,
there is differences in
yes,
love.
there's
So
a
yeah.
difference between, there's phileo, there's agape, there's eros, all that stuff. But when you talk about, well, let's just talk about phileo. Let's talk about from, when you talk about brotherly love,
Right.
right? You can have brotherly love and still not particularly care and like a person.
Right.
But agape love, man, that surpasses all understanding. That's that unconditional. That's that no matter if I like you or no matter if we can't stand each other and we can't do each other, I'm still gonna love you
Because it's not
because
based upon someone's actions.
exactly,
Okay.
it's because it's an obligation, it's a responsibility. But I
Gotcha.
always
Gotcha.
tell people, be very careful when you say, I don't like that person, because the question becomes, why don't you like them? And what have they done for you to get to a point where you can't demonstrate brotherly love or sisterly love? Because at the end of the day, just because we have a difference of opinion or just because you've done something doesn't mean that I stopped doing what I was created to do, and that's love. Like I can love you through the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, there's a thing called boundaries,
Of course.
loving from a distance. But that doesn't mean just because you did something or because your personality is different that I just don't like you. No, we just don't agree. But to say, but that's a strong word to say, I don't like that person. Well, that's kind of deep. What's on the inside of you that's causing you to have a dislike for somebody? That question is the love within. Because for you, for anything, you can easily say that, and then the person that you marry, I'm just really not. I'm starting not to like her. Okay, you're not liking her because of a difference of opinion, or you're not liking her because you have a disdain, or there's something on the inside that's boiling, and it's just like so. Now the question becomes, what kind of love that's is in your heart, or do you even have love in your heart to be able to make that kind of statement?
Makes sense. Hey, Ricky, I'm just sitting here. Look, we just got our first text, man. Uh, guy named Timothy, but he didn't put his last name. Anyway, he wants to know because he feels like he's in a loving relationship, but he's confused about whether that person really is expressing
Mhm.
love for him. So he wants to know should he continue to, uh, in the vein of, let's see, in the vein of what's love got to do with it, should I continue to love where love doesn't seem to be coming back to me from this individual?
Should I continue to love that individual even though the love is not coming back?
Yeah. Or at least that's what it looks like he's saying
Well,
he
I mean,
feels.
that's really a no-brainer to me because love should never stop with anybody or anyone because that's a responsibility as human beings. We are to love regardless of the situation. Now, it doesn't mean that we are to continue to be in an unwanted relationship or an unwanted situation. So you have to be able to set boundaries and decide how far you will go with someone who's not demonstrating in return what you are, of course, giving to them. Doesn't mean you stop loving. It just means that you are now going to love under new management, in a different position, in a different light, which means, okay, I'm going to have this conversation. Let's talk about where we're at. And if we're actually not going in the same direction,
Gotcha.
then we have to make some decision where we're both not lacking from each other.
Okay.
Because I just believe, let's just call it what it is, George. You've been in relationships, I've been in relationships. Who really wants to be sucked dry from the emotions and the energy of someone and not being replenished? That
Okay.
doesn't make sense. Why would you want to stay in a situation where you're constantly being taken from and not being poured back into?
Makes sense. Let me ask you this, and this is in regards to going back to my first question earlier. What's love got to do with it? And I know the audience will love this. What was your first thought when you came up with that topic? Other than it being a topic that can help a lot of people, what personally triggered it for you?
To be honest with you, it had to do with a message that I, recently listened to with a particular pastor. I'm not going to say his name, but um,
What
this
what what
this
what, what resonated within you? Like
yeah,
something.
this is what resonated. He was talking about how we sometimes as human beings, and we all are guilty of it, we have a tendency to love based on feelings and emotions
Okay.
instead of responsibility.
Okay.
And so I had to think about that. And I said, a lot of times we have been acting robotic in our expression to things because how if someone says, "Hey, I love you," say, "I love you too." but that's not how you really feel. You're just saying that because that's just the thing to say. Or somebody say,
You're
God bless you.
responding.
Yeah, you're just a call and response. And so when I thought about it, I said, God has never stopped loving me, no matter how many times I got things wrong. No matter how many times I was not available to do what he called me to do, or I missed the mark. He continued to love me unconditionally. And so I figured if he made me in his image and I'm his offspring, then why can't I demonstrate what he has demonstrated to me? Because, and I thought about it, I said, you'll have more of a benefit doing right by someone and loving someone through whatever they're going through than you would if you're doing something wrong to them. Because a lot of times people generally just need some type of encouragement or a demonstration of care and concern. That's love. Care and concern. That's loving somebody through it. Yeah, you might have, done some things to me, said some things to me, but if I continue to show love, which means it's just it's a minimum of emotion. It's not about I'm just no, it's about the fact that I have a responsibility to love that person through whatever situation they're in because that's how God did that for me. Because God could have definitely kicked me to the curb as many times I got it wrong. So how am I to judge someone and say what I'm not going to do or I'm going to stop doing just because that person has something going on in their life and they're having a difficult time demonstrating that?
Gotcha. Have you ever personally been in a situation where you literally you threw your hands up in the air and you said, "What does love have to do with this?"
Yeah. Yes. Because I questioned the obligation and I said, well, if love is supposed to get disrespected, abused, neglected, mistreated, then why even be in love or why even be in a relationship that requires love? And I said, why does it have to do with it? And I thought about it. I said, well, love is a responsibility. And it's not necessarily what you're supposed to get from it. It's what you're supposed to give to it. It's what you're supposed to demonstrate. Now, you do that not conditionally, but unconditionally. Like you don't love just so you can get it back. You love because that's what the requirement is for what love is. Because a lot of people say, well, what kind of definition? Well, you can even look in the dictionary, you can look in the Bible, you can look wherever the definition of love is, and one thing you will find is what it requires and the responsibility that it has. But at the same time, you have to be able to have love within yourself before you can even love someone else. Because you can't give something you don't have. If you have a broken heart or you're a broken individual, how can you really truly give yourself wholeheartedly to somebody? You can't. You only gonna give a part. You only give some. That's why I tell people if you're broken if you're a broken person from a past relationship, you should not be getting into another relationship until you get healed. Because all you're going to do is transfer that baggage from that last relationship onto the other person, and you're not going to be able to be wholehearted. You're not going to be able to give fully. You're not going to be able to demonstrate love because you're still going to have that wall up. You're going to have that resistance up, and then as a result, you're going to really start not liking someone because they are probably saying things or doing things that's causing some unfamiliar feelings within your heart.
Let me ask you that because since you brought that up, what do you think that can be done to break down the wall of someone who has been wounded and the person on the outside is trying to show them or express love? How do you think that, in your opinion, how is that done? How is that wall broken down?
Well, first, you have to be honest within yourself. You have to really identify where your pain and hurt comes from.
Okay.
Identifying why you feel the way you feel, identifying why you feel that type of way, whatever it is. And then identify hopefully, where did you get it from? Where did it come from? Did it come from, your parents, a former boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever? You have to be able to identify, and it's called self reflection. A lot of us don't self reflect. We don't really be honest with ourselves and say, okay, you know what? Let me just really address myself. Like, why am I so angry? Like, why am I so, why can't I trust nobody? Like, you have to really come to terms with that. And if you can't, I tell this to the audience, if you can't do that, which is very common, you need to sit down and talk to a therapist because no matter what the situation is, it has to be addressed. It has to come out. It has to be put on the table so you can deal with it if you're hoping to encounter a positive, loving relationship down the road. No one really wants to hold on to bitterness and resentment. No one wants to stay mad and angry. No one wants to. That's not a pleasant feeling. But a lot of times we stay there because we don't know how to escape it.
Do you think people stay in states of pain, frustration, or resentment because the, I guess, the counterbalance or the antithesis of it is unknown or nothing, and so that becomes a familial state of being?
I do believe that. I do believe people, some people tend to stay comfortable with what's familiar.
Okay.
A lot of time, and I've actually heard women say this. They've gotten so used to being hurt and disappointed that they actually blame themselves and thought it was something they did that caused the constant reoccurrences. So you have a lot of people who are really comfortable in their own pain and they don't really know how to escape it. Matter of fact, they don't even know what really happiness really is, or at least feeling something for somebody because they've been hurt and disappointed so much in their life.
Okay. Okay. No, that's really good. I mean, I think this is good information you're giving to our audience, and hopefully they are, if they're in these particular situations, this is going to be something that's going to help them to maybe step back, recognize where they are in their situation, and maybe either decide whether they want to proceed
Yeah,
with it
yeah.
or maybe escape and start fresh and do something new.
And also too, man, and just getting back to the question, what does love have to do with it? I'm gonna, as we're closing, this segment, it has a lot to do with you. It has a lot to do with you as the individual. Why? Because you can't really be or stay in a relationship and have it successful if you're not equipped for it, which means it starts from the inside. You can't really demonstrate and show love to somebody if you're not demonstrating that for yourself, or at least loving yourself enough to be honest and open and be willing to change and improve upon, let's say, the way you communicate or the way you treat people or how you, deal with people in the workplace or how you deal with your own family and friends. If you're not taking the onus on yourself to be a better person and to demonstrate what you desire in somebody else, you're not going to be able to give that to anybody because you can't give something you don't have. So I
Right.
say, what's love have to do with it? Has a lot to do with you first. If you get your heart right first and you start to really dig deep and deal with those situations and circumstances that's causing you the blockage or the disconnect from people, once you get that together, then you'll be able to be available and open to experience new beginnings with loving someone because you are now loving yourself.
Okay. Well, Ricky, thank you for that explanation for our audience. And thank you for answering Timothy's question. I wasn't expecting to get a text from someone, even though that was an outside caller. We're going to develop a way for our audience to be able to reach out to us in the near future. So that kind of surprised me getting that. But again, thank you for enlightening us with that. Because at first, when I heard what's love got to do with it, of course, like our audience, and we all thought about the movie. That's the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you've been able to give some clarity to that and a lot more transparency for us to see exactly what that topic means to you and what it can mean for our audience and how it can help improve the lives of those who have question marks.
Yes. Yes. Well, I appreciate this discussion, and hopefully, this gives the audience an opportunity to just think about themselves and just think about what love really means to you and how you would want to be shown love. And this is a conversation piece that you can have over coffee, tea, in your book clubs. Fellas night out, birthday, but whatever the case is, I think this
Yes.
is something that will continue to, improve this generation and people as a whole.
Well,
So,
Ricky, thank you for that.
oh yeah,
Life after the fight.
there you go.
And we're going to leave it at that. And again, thank you so much for sharing that topic with our audience.
And thank you, audience, and we will see you later. Have a good
Peace.
one.